This broadcast is the property of Codependents Anonymous. Reproduction without written permission from Codependents Anonymous is not permitted.
And today we have a guest speaker, Debbie W. from NorCal, from Northern California, who will introduce and speak on their latest work that was presented at CSC, the CoDA Service Convention in Rapid City, South Dakota this year. It is working steps 4 and 5 using the 40 questions. So nice to have you here today, and thank you for your service. Debbie, welcome.
Hi, I'm Debbie W., a grateful, recovering codependent. I appreciate the time that we can get together today and talk about this material that has come through our higher power and working the steps so that we can all recover from the amazingly confusing situation of codependency. I just wanted to say this format is a little discombobulating for me because I can't see your faces. I can't, so I might just even close my eyes. So I'm with you all. Anyway, welcome. I wanted to let you know that these steps 4 and 5 have been evolving in a journey for the last 15 years. We put together the 30 questions to work step 1, 2, and 3 back in 2008 because it was so confusing. The newcomers would come in and don't know where to start. I just noticed that the newcomers needed little tiny pieces to get started, like answer one question and get back to me. So I looked through the 30 questions, I looked through the book, and I was able to get them to work step 1, 2, and 3 really deeply. And then we presented that to CoDA and they were welcomed with open arms. There is a link that I put in the chat of where the introduction to the 30 questions is on the CoDA website. If you find that, you can post it again in the chat. In fact, let me read it out to you. The history of the 30 questions is at www.codependence.org/FF as in Fellowship Forum /FF-2019-01-26.mp3. So that's the history of the 30 questions. And so then there was a clamoring of, well, what do we do after step 1, 2, and 3? So we've been working on the 4th step for a long time. And first we had 120 questions because we have quite a lot of material that we cover in CoDA, different topics. And then it was like that, nah, that's not going to work. So it was suggested that we get them down to manageable length of 40 questions. And then we noticed that as we were doing a question, writing about it, sharing it with our sponsor or our co-sponsor, that we were actually doing the 5th step too. So then it evolved into working steps 4 and 5 using the 40 questions. So this has been a long-term study. It was presented to CoDA as a whole in August. We now have it provisionally available for a year for all sorts of suggestions, questions. It's a living, breathing document. If there's something that needs to be changed, we can change it. but the goal is to get it available on the CoDA website next to the 30 questions in this, the tools on that's listed on the first page of CoDA.org. So saying all that, I just want to say that step 4 is made us fearless in searching moral inventory of ourselves. And how scary that has been and daunting. If you're anything like me, a perfectionist, it would take me forever to do step 4 and I'd never get to step 5. So this was a good tool to help others to say, hey, you know, if you just allow a certain amount of time for the question, get it done, and then we'll go to the next one. You don't have to be a perfectionist about it. So it was really great. I just want to read the first page of suggestions and then instructions. Let's see if I can share my screen. That would be great. I am going to.
Debbie, I did put a link in the chat to the 40 to the using the 40 questions.
To the
Yes, I put a link to this document in the chat, just so you know.
Oh, awesome. So they can follow with me. Okay, can you see the screen now?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So use working steps 4 and 5 is a 15-page document. But the first page was step 4. Oh, shoot, I got to change that. That's not. The step 4 and step 5 is out of whack. That's why it's provisional. We're still working on this. Okay. So learning to love the self, that's what step 4 is all about. Step 1, 2, and 3 is learning to love our higher power and have a healthy relationship with God. Step 4 and 5 is about learning to love the self and having a healthy relationship with ourself. So is 6 and 7. And then 8 and 9 is about learning to have healthy relationships with others. So step 4 is there are many ways to work step 4 and 5. We have literature in the green book. We have all sorts of suggestions in the blue book. But this is just another way. We lovingly offer this as another tool. We hope it will be a gentle yet effective approach to discovering what may be standing in the way of having healthy and loving relationships. The next set of questions, which is the 40 questions, will guide you through sections in the CoDA Blue Book. And we're using the 3rd edition. So for background and information and insights helpful to thoroughly working step 4, as you share your written answers with your sponsor, co-sponsor, or step study group, you will also be completing step 5. See if this will work. Go down a little bit. No, a little bit too much. Okay. It is suggested you create a self-care kit, put in uplifting messages to yourself, learn to love yourself unconditionally. And it's also suggested that you create a recovery toolbox. So the tools of recovery can go in there, like the recovery tools we learned in the 30 questions, like respectful detachment, setting healthy boundaries, practicing healthy communication skills. As you courageously go forward, you will start to recognize 7 major areas of healing needed for your CoDA recovery. So from now on, every life lesson and experience you encounter, your higher power might be asking you to grow in these 7 areas. 1, setting healthy boundaries. 2, using healthy communication skills. 3, loving yourself unconditionally. 4, grief work and experiencing our original pain. 5, reparenting our inner child. 6, integrating our disowned parts. 7, developing positive self-worth. So don't get bogged down with the details of these topics right now. Just be aware that these are 7 important areas. And as you work the rest of the 12 steps, you will see yourself healing in all of these areas. Be patient, be diligent. Begin the daily habit of working steps 1, 2, and 3 when you wake up in the morning or when you awake. And also practice the maintenance steps of CoDA 10, 11, and 12 just before you go to bed to the best of your ability. And the suggestion is to say the CoDA 3rd step prayer daily and then review your day at the end of the day using the recovery patterns of codependence. And those are both on the CoDA.org website. Also, you can keep track of your daily progress on your CoDA program journey that was introduced in the 30 questions. And ask yourself what recovery areas need more of your attention. Remember, progress, not perfection. I wanted to just pop in with this picture that I used in a workshop years ago, and I'm still using it to explain how I see the recovery process in CoDA. We have a unique program in that we have 8 bottom line behaviors. In other 12-step programs, they have about 1. Like in AA, they say, keep the plug in the jug. In Overeaters Anonymous, it's like no white sugar, no white flour, 1 day at a time. Gamblers Anonymous is no gambling, 1 day at a time. And in CoDA, we have 8 of those. So it's very confusing where to start, what needs work. And so this is what came for me is as we're working Codependence Anonymous, we're going to be trying to find peace, which is in the middle, the inner peace. And then we may be working on healthy boundaries, communication, loving ourselves, grieving the original pain, reparenting inner child work, having positive self-worth, and then integrating those disowned parts, the parts that we see in others that we don't recognize in ourselves. We can integrate those parts. Okay, I wanted to go back to to the 4th step again, the 40 questions. Don't know if you're aware of this page right here. It's kind of hard to see in this format, but because it's supposed to be landscape, but at the left side, it goes from 1 to 31, which is 31 days in a month. And then how to work a CoDA program is integrating prayer and meditation, attending meetings, doing our 12-step work, doing program calls, reading CoDA books and literature, having awareness of feelings and needs, doing our journal writing, setting healthy boundaries, having fun and play and relaxation for self-care, doing our family of origin work, doing CoDA service work, and having self-talk with gentleness and humor. So if we're reviewing this every day and we're working the 40 questions, what I've noticed is we're doing 12-step work. So you can check that. Program calls, you're calling the sponsors. You can check that. You can, you're reading the CoDA Blue Book, so you can check that because we're reading CoDA literature. We're aware of our feelings and needs. Check that. We're writing in our journal about our thoughts and feelings. Check that. We're learning about healthy boundaries and family of origin work and playing. And at the same time, we're all helping in service. The other thing I like about the 40 questions is it gives my sponsees a tool where they can, once they finish working steps 4 and 5, they can now help newcomers, and they can help with the 30 questions, or they can help newcomers with the 40 questions because they have a format to use. So that's the first part of the 40 questions, just to get started and introduce. And then I like to change, and we may use this as a suggestion, I like to change the format of this 15-page document to 2 columns. and then pull it up on my phone when I'm talking to my sponsees. And then if it fits better on the mobile device, so I can do a screenshot of the question. I can text the next question to them. I don't have to do all that writing, or they don't have to do all the writing. They can just read it and we'll be on the same page. So let's start with just question number 1, just to get an idea. So question 1, read step 4 on pages 41 to 49 and step 5 on pages 49 to 52 in the CoDA Blue Book. Get the big picture of these steps. What attitudes are you striving to have while you do your inventory? How can you use steps 1, 2, and 3 to do step 4? This inventory process is one of the most loving things you can do for yourself. You are about to embark on the great adventure of discovering the lost parts of yourself. And self is in all caps. Write in detail about a past adventure that you truly enjoyed. And so that question means so much to me, because it gives something to my sponsees to think about, to feel about, to write about, to envision. They're using all of their imagination. They're using all of their past, present, future, to think and get emotionally involved in working these questions. So anyway, we go mostly through the book, talk about the recovery toolbox and what kind of tools to put in it in question 2. We read on question 3 about the 8 bottom line behaviors, and then ask what triggers the sponsee has that are most important to them. I usually ask them, which are your 3 most persistent triggers that are, will get you off of your emotional sobriety, and write about that. So that gets them started. And then we talk about fear and how we can have an affirmation to face everything and recover, put that in their toolbox. And then question 5 is reading page 41 about a moral inventory, and how our moral inventory needs to not be harsh and critical and abusive of ourselves, and why this inventory must only be about ourselves. So the other thing I like about question 5 is it asks the sponsee to give permission to the process, that it's okay for the uncomfortable feelings that we've been avoiding for so long, that we've been pushing down for so long, to come to the surface to be healed. And that's them buying in and saying, yes, I'm okay with healing this. Also, I wanted to just give a footnote that in the 2022 CoDA Service Conference, the Literature Committee put out a prayer called the Healing Prayer. And it was also accepted as a really wonderful part of our program going forward. So I'm thinking about putting that healing prayer right here in question 5.
Debbie, let me
yes.
interrupt you just for a moment and ask everyone to please mute themselves. If you can, if you're on a phone, it is *6 to mute yourself. Thank you. Sorry for the interruption, Debbie.
Oh, no worries. Whatever makes
And as
work.
long as I've interrupted you, I've made a landscape horizontal version of that chart, which I will put a link to in the chat. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I suggest to my sponsees that they print out 12 of them, put them on a clipboard so that they can keep track of their CoDA recovery, month by month. So it's a really great tool that was introduced years ago. I really think it's effective going forward. Oh, excuse me, I have a little bit of phlegm. Okay, so as we work through these questions, I just wanted to let you know these questions contain a lot of content, a lot of thinking, a lot of processing. Question number 5 goes into what is a victim? What is accountability? What does a rescuer look like? What does a perpetrator look like? What does a victim sound like? And instead of, excuse me, instead of making more questions, because remember we had 120, I would just make little paragraphs. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but the paragraphs really I would break down into like 5A, 5B, and these dots here, I have, if the sponsee is really getting into it and really going deep, I'll just give one of these paragraphs at a time. And one time we'll think about the victim, and then we'll ask, what does the victim get out of being a victim? You know, what does a perpetrator believe? What do they sound like? What do they get out of being a perpetrator? And how does a rescuer, what do they get out of it? What do they believe to be true? How do they talk? What is a rescuer? And then I have a triangle that I use called the drama triangle. I put the victim on the bottom corner, the rescuer on the upper left, and the perpetrator on the upper right. And we explore how we flip into all these different corners in a victim, perpetrator, rescuer drama, and how when we become a rescuer, we actually are signing up to be the perpetrator and the victim in the drama. It might take 5 seconds, 5 minutes, 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 lifetimes, but we are going to travel in all those corners if we jump into the rescuer corner of the triangle. That's just me. I did not put the triangle into the 40 questions because it has been used in outside of the CoDA program, but I do find that the concept of not being a victim and being responsible for my thoughts, feelings, and emotions and my behavior is so important to my recovery. I have noticed that the ones in our program that take 100% personal responsibility move more quickly in recovery than any of the other sponsees I work with. So this is important to me. Then question number 6, we talk about the shame spiral, which is on pages 118, 119. We look about shame in our childhood, how we get confused about making a mistake with being a mistake. And so ask them to write about that in their journal. And how will practicing accountability and responsibility minimize those feelings of shame and the codependency? So the first part of step 4 isn't just jumping in and going, how were you wrong? How did you hurt people? It's more about developing a really sweet spot with ourselves and looking at the buried feelings and searching for clarity. And what does our childhood have to do with, our recovery today and how we're acting today? I'm going to speed up a little bit. I just wanted to put in one of the favorite ones I have is question 8, because it talks about visualizing a spiritual journey and how that's going to involve a deep cleansing process. And I asked my sponsees to write in their journal or draw a picture what a deep cleansing, a spiritual deep cleansing process would look like to them, so that they can start to envision their step 4. And then we go on the journey of looking at forgiving, and we look at how trusting our higher power will help us be gentle with ourselves. Are there any other people we know that are gentle with themselves that we can use as a role model? Then we talk about the child within, and then keeping a healthy balance between the parent and the child. I had one sponsee, she came up to me and she goes, well, I've decided to put my inner child in a car seat when we go on a ride. She doesn't get to drive the car anymore. And I thought that was really sweet. I asked in question 10, I think it is, to write a letter from the inner child, the one that's been in pain all these years, to write a letter to our loving inner parent. And this is mine. So if you will indulge me, I want to read it. I would love to read it to you. To my loving parent, I hear your calm, loving voice inside me. Please help me depend on you to help me to be more kind and gentle with myself and more accepting of myself. Help me remember that I do have value and worth. Help me really listen to what I tell myself about me, to challenge my critical inner voice, and to consciously care for my precious child within. If I am fearful or apathetic, please challenge me to try, but please also help me to give myself a break if I judge myself too harshly. I need your help to stay in touch with my feelings and needs so I can take very good care of myself with self-love and serenity. Help me to be patient and find balance in my emotions and on the teeter-totter of my reality, knowing that I am good enough and can make it through. Help me focus on progress, not perfection, with trust, sincerity, and gratitude. Debbie. So I'm just giving you a little taste of the 40 questions. You have them. You can read them. And but as we go through, you'll notice we just talked about the inner child. And then in question 12, we start talking about boundaries and how we need, if we're going to set boundaries, we need healthy communication to set those boundaries, and talk about getting copies of those from our literature person, because we already have that in our CoDA. And then we talk about in depth, what is an external boundary? What's an internal boundary? And then as we go along, we talk about I statements and how those boundaries are important. Let's see. And then this one, I have my sponsees write these out, put them on a Post-it note, put them on their bathroom mirror, put them in the refrigerator, put them in their wallet, put them in their purse. But to memorize these 5 internal boundaries that are in our book, I know where I stop and you begin. I know what is my business and what is none of my business. I know the difference between my emotions and others' emotions. I recognize what is and what is not my responsibility, and I am aware of what is and what is not comfortable or safe for me. So those boundaries are so important. And when I'm in a shame spiral, I can't remember any of them, and I need to call my sponsor, my loving sponsees, and everyone can remind me, hey, what were those 5 wonderful boundaries again? But those are all in our blue book, and our blue book is just such a wonderful tool. So as we learn healthy boundaries, we learn how to say no, we'll learn how to say I love myself, loving ourselves unconditionally. And then I bring in question 24, I bring you to the dreaded list on page 44. Now, page 44 in the blue book has about, I think 45 nasty things that we can do in our codependency, like lying and hating and resenting. And the CoDA Blue Book is really clear about how we should take one of these at a time and look at them. Like, 1, lying. How do we lie physically, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, and sexually? So lying might be hiding my actions from other people. Lying emotionally might be saying, oh, I'm fine, when I'm really not. Lying intellectually may be expressing a lie overtly or covertly to manipulate the flow of information or avoiding a confrontation. Lying spiritually may be believing that I'm not enough or believing that I'm a mistake. Lying sexually may be saying yes when I really want to say no. So this is a really important part of our blue book that it's a nasty little list, but I think it's really important for us to do a moral inventory of ourselves. And hey, has this ever happened to me? And then there's even more that I've found, like jealousy, bullying, that aren't on the list. So anyway, this is what I've kind of explored. Then we talk about other boundaries, enmeshment. And then we talk about healthy communication, how clarity is loving and mixed messages are abusive, and how blaming and criticizing is not taking responsibility. Making a demand sounds like a threat to the other person. And we talk about making observations instead of judging. We talk about expressing our feelings and expressing our needs instead of making a demand. And then how to negotiate a win-win situation, because it's no fun to be in a win-lose situation. It's not fun at all. And then going forward, we start talking about how we've talked about reparenting our child, our healthy boundaries, communication, and now we're going to talk about grieving and developing positive self-worth and integrating our disowned parts. So I'm going to speed up a little bit. Loving ourselves unconditionally is so fun. We can then talk about grieving and the 5 stages of grieving. We talk about the disowned parts. I have to tell you, is really difficult. We don't really cover it that much in our literature. But what I call the disowned parts is the bony finger disease, where we see the character defect in someone else and we criticize them. And we can't see that we have that in ourselves somewhere. We've maybe said, oh, I'll never do that. I will never be lazy. I will never do, and then all of a sudden when we start to see that, oh, I do have that character flaw that I don't ever want to look at and I have shame about it. Once we start looking at that and be honest about the denial, we start to see compassion for other people, and it's not such a harsh world to be in. Okay, so getting started on the list. So question 31 begins making the list of our inventory, where we take the blank sheet of paper and we write across the top, who in our life is there? There's always God, ourselves, then our mom and dad, our spouses, our exes, our coworkers. I like to take 1 sheet of paper per person, and then across the top put my codependent patterns that I displayed with them, my actions, behaviors. There's many ways to do this list, but this is the way it's pretty much explained in the CoDA Blue Book, so we went with that. And then I just give them a little encouragement in question 32. You can do this. Make sure that you invite your higher power to look with you while you're looking at your relationship with other people and how you showed up in their life. Ask questions about them. I suggest they spend like 10 or 15 minutes at a time, no more than 3 times a day. This isn't a time to be harming ourselves with criticism. We're just looking in the pantry to see how many cans of tomatoes we have in there, and and how many we don't. So we're just taking an inventory. So question 33 starts with our control patterns, and I have all the control patterns that we have listed in our program, but also I have suggestions on how to look at the control patterns. Like there's on page 120 and 122 is a really good resource we have about what are physical and aggressive forms of abuse and control, and then what are non-physical and passive forms of abuse and control. Those are awesome and need to be looked at and integrated into the the knowledge of my sponsees so they can move forward. And then I have them read, what's the difference between blame and accountability? What does taking responsibility feel like? And when we stop longing for others to make us happy, we can look to ourselves and to our higher power. These are just really, really valuable for going forward with the questions on controlling. Like, do you have a struggle with being right or wrong with this person? Is it about having to be right? Is it about having to be perfect? Is it about trying to be safe and powerful and in control? Is it frightening when you're not right? So these are just really great questions for looking at the control patterns. The other thing that I really want to encourage is balance, because in the fourth step, we can get really negative. So one of the stepping stones on the path is the balance, to take out a list of we're looking at liabilities, but also we need to have a list of our positive attributes. So I ask that we keep a journal of what 5 things do you really like about yourself? What are your positive things? And so every time we go through one of the characteristic patterns groups, then I have them do the balance. Avoidance patterns comes next, because if I'm either controlling or avoiding, or I'm in recovery, but avoidance is something we all need to look at. And we know what those characteristics are. Denial patterns comes next, question 35. We'll go through all of those. When we catch ourselves blaming or accusing another person, where are we in denial? Because that's a red flag, is that we're not dealing with our own, where, there's a disowned feeling or something that's unresolved when we're blaming someone else. And then we come to the low self-esteem patterns, and then we go to the compliance patterns. Am I going too fast or slow? How are we doing? I can't
You're
see
doing fine.
Okay, can't see faces. But anyway, again, we're putting the stepping stone on the path for more, to keep the balance. A balanced perspective actually comes up in question 38. And it's addressed on page 48 and 49 in the Blue Book. To thoroughly explore and understand, we have to identify positive, healthy, appropriate, loving behaviors that we are displaying. Question 39 says, as you come to the end of your step 4 and 5 work, read the sections, Am I Ever Recovered from Codependence? What is a codependent slip? And write your insights in your journal. And are you seeing codependent patterns repeating over and over again as common threads and in your relationships? And then read page 49. And it says, from a place of humility, we've become ready to complete step 5. And talks about how humility is not humiliation, but a healthier relationship with yourself and your higher power. And then step 5 is read again. We read the whole step again on step 5 and discuss how we've already done this with God by working these 40 questions with another human being. And then question 40 is, have you noticed that you've worked the questions on step 5? And congratulations, you've come an incredible distance. Celebrate. And I also included a graphic that's been coming up for us in finding self-love, is the balance between being too selfish and too selfless. And that's when we live in the extremes, we're not in an emotional, sober place. So what I find is, in a situation, I'll go, where can I get between selfish and self-love, and selfish and selfless, to find that sweet spot where my higher power wants me to be with being loving myself. So I'm going to share this with you and read step 4 and step 5, our prayers, and then open it up for questions. So step 4 prayer. In this moment, I am willing to see myself as I truly am, a growing, unfolding spiritual being resting in the hands of a loving God. I can separate who I am from what I've done, knowing that the real me is emerging, loving, joyful, and whole. And then step 5 prayer. In this moment, I will acknowledge myself for doing what was most difficult for me. I will rest in the accepting presence of my higher power. I know I have deepened commitment to the journey of recovery by opening myself and my heart to a fellow human being. And then the last question, are you ready to begin working step 6? And that's the gift that we gave to CoDA this year. And we're asking for feedback and for suggestions and for accolades. Any questions?
Debbie, first of all, thank you so much for coming today and presenting this document for us. There is someone I want to address that question. We are, Debbie from NorCal has been presenting their NorCal's latest contribution to this program, working steps 4 and 5 using the 40 questions. And there is a link to this document. I noticed that because I was at CSC, I got a chance to make a copy and post it at the Long Island CoDA website. I have searched the CoDA World website for this document and not been able to find it posted there. Perhaps, Debbie, you could put a link to the version that you have been sharing on the screen in the chat, please.
I don't have it saved in an appropriate place at this present moment.
Okay.
But I will.
If you send that to me at the ComChair at CoDA.org, a link to that document or a copy of that document, I'll update the one I've posted. And in the meantime, I'll repost the link I have for those people that didn't get a chance to see it earlier. Okay?
Yes, and also we need to talk to the webmaster and get them to post it on the CoDA.org website as a provisional document.
Right. I agree, because that was discussed at CSC, and I haven't seen it there. There is a slightly different version of this document posted at UK CoDA that does not include, it has most of what you've got. It's slightly different intro, doesn't include the chart. And I'll repost some of those links in the chat shortly for those people. All right. And then
I believe that CoDA UK obtained the 40 questions. That's an older version from years ago, and that's what they're posting. Yes. So if we look at the bottom of this document, am I still screen sharing?
Yes, you are.
Okay, if we look at the bottom, it's copyright 2022.
Right.
That's the version that is the one we voted on.
Right. But World CoDA has yet to post a link to that version. And the version that was presented for the motion is not a double column, it's single column. That's the version I am linking to right now.
That's correct. I have just found, and a lot of other sponsors are noticing that as I'm on my cell phone, this document, when I open it up, I actually save it in my Dropbox folder for my sponsor tools. And when I pull it up and look at it, I can do a screenshot, and this I don't know if you can see my mouse, but this little screenshot then will send as a picture on a text, and that's how I do it. But everyone's going to do it differently because what's appropriate for them. But I like it. I mean, it's easy to change it if I wanted to. I could just change it to columns 1. And now it's back to.
Right. I see. I don't have that.
Oh, I didn't do it right, but
yeah,
that's how you do it. You just do columns.
I can't do that because my copy is a PDF.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Okay. I will get the clerical and administrative things
Great.
done.
Again, thank you so much. Let's open the forum for questions from the participants. Avi, I see your hand up. Welcome.
Hi. Quick audio check. Can I be heard?
I hear you, Ari.
I hear you.
Oh, okay. Actually, what I'm wondering about, is there anybody here who's gone through these questions, either the old K1 or the current draft here? I'm actually looking to see if anybody's willing and able to provide feedback if they happen to be in this event. So I'm wondering, what their experience is regarding this particular document. Yeah, that's my major question. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Is anyone here? I don't have the list of participants. I sent out an invite to some of the sponsees that I'm in communication with that I know have worked them. I don't know if they're here. Is anyone here that have worked the 40 questions?
I'm currently, one sponsor I have is working them, and we did questions 3 and 4 today. Next week, he will begin question 5. So we're just beginning. I'm just getting an exposure to working this document with a sponsee.
Awesome.
He is very happy with it and enjoys working it so far.
Awesome.
By the way, since my name is not on the screen, my name is David. James and I are the hosts of the Fellowship Forum. Thank you for your question, Ari. I'm sorry we don't have a better answer than that. Can
I ask Ari a question? Would that be appropriate?
And that's up to Ari.
Yes.
Ari, are you a sponsor? Are you sponsoring people? Do you have a sponsor? Are you looking at working the questions? What's your purpose right now?
Okay, good question. My background is I've been in CoDA for, I would say, about 3 years now. Mm-hmm. Working with my previous sponsor, I got about what we considered about 5% through step 4. Mm-hmm. And then kind of ground to a halt. Uh-huh. And because it wasn't working, and again, how much of it was me, how much it was the relation. The relationship wasn't working, so I ended that sponsorship, or we mutually did. And so I'm looking to. I work with a step group that's kind of where my recovery is a little bit messy. Let's put it that way. So I never officially got through step 4 in an organized fashion. So yeah, that is the short answer. So
So you're looking for a tool that will guide you through step 4 in a methodical way. Is that what I'm hearing you say, Ari?
Yeah, I'm curious about it because, which is sort of leads to my follow-up question, which of course is that there is the green. In my experience, I've worked through the Green Book on step 4 with other in a step group, but in some ways that process was not complete. In some way, for me personally, like I didn't feel like I'd gotten I processed things, which was good, but I came out at the other end to 6 and 7 feeling not really ready to go on to those steps.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I'm searching for that stuff. Right. And so,
Okay.
yeah, go ahead.
My experience with the Green Book, and I love the Green Book in that we are addressing the step and the tradition at the same time. They are sister principles underlying, and they kind of balance each other out. But when I was a newcomer, and I looked at the Green Book in the late 80s, early 90s, I had so much stuff going on, and I heard you say messy. I was messy, and those questions was like doing open heart surgery with no anesthetic. It brought up more pain than healing. And so as the years have gone by and I've sponsored so many people, I've tried to approach the fourth step in a very gentle and loving way, where we're not delving in with a lot of, well, you were wrong when you did that, because the shaming part is just so painful. And that's my inner voice, by the way, not anyone else's. Does that make sense, Ari?
Yeah, definitely. For me, my experience was trying to work it initially was like being dragged through mud.
The questions are in the Green Book are very specific. They cut very deep. They go to the source, but I wasn't ready as a newcomer. So, thanks for the question, because I think that a lot of our CoDA brothers and sisters have the same dilemma. Now that I have a lot of time in the program, I can answer those questions no problem without a lot of pain. But at the beginning, it was hard. So this is just another way to work step 4. And it's basically a gift. It's just, it doesn't have to be, you could jump all around through the 40 questions, whichever is more appropriate at the time. I had one sponsee who happened to be taking a grieving workshop for 6 months. And so we just jumped right into the grieving part of the questions and looked at that while she was working in her other process. So there's no right or wrong. It's basically the concept is, I've never really loved myself unconditionally. There was always conditions. And I believe in my heart that the problem with CoDA, with the codependency, is that we believe a lie. We believe we're not enough. Somewhere along the line, we've got to believe that we're not okay. And that drives our shame, that drives our control issues, that drives our low self-esteem patterns, our compliance patterns. That God made me. I didn't make myself. That's a fact. I've come to get out of the struggle of where did I come from? It's like, okay, higher power, pretty easy. But then there's the God doesn't make junk. Okay, well, then how is it that I made a mistake if I'm not junk? Well, that's just the human dilemma. And when I was really, really struggling, when I first got into CoDA, I had made some horrible mistakes and hurt another human being so deeply. And I had so many regrets. And I asked my higher power, I said, why is it if I'm on the path and you're helping me along the path and I made a mistake, but I'm not a mistake, why did I go and cause all this pain to another person? And I heard this thought come through my mind that I know didn't belong to me. And it said, you are his teacher, and his lesson is forgiveness. And I was very humbled because, okay, we're all on this path, learning and learning how to love each other, love ourselves. But chapter 2, our spiritual dilemma, is very clear. We can't have healthy relationships unless we put our first relationship with God, our second relationship with ourselves, and our third relationship with other people. So I love the program of Codependence Anonymous. It's really clear. It seems complex, but it takes a lot of courage to work and be in recovery. It is not for the faint of heart. So all of you that are listening, I just want to encourage you to keep going forward. Strive for peace, strive for emotional sobriety. That's the gifts of our program. When we're in alignment with our higher power, we'll be creating win-win situations. We'll be creating situations where we're asking ourselves, what am I feeling? What am I needing? And once we know what we need, do I need more information? Do I need respect? Do I need time alone? Do I need time together? All of these wonderful questions that we can ask. And then once we know what we need, we can go ask the others in our lives to help us get our needs met. And then it can become a win-win situation where we can say to them, I'm willing to have a relationship with you where you get your needs met and I get my needs met too. Are you willing to have a relationship with me like that? And it becomes a real joy instead of a struggle. So anyway, any other feedback or questions?
Before I take any more questions, Debbie, we have reached the point. I see your hand up. Nanette, hold that thought, please. Could you, Debbie, stop sharing your screen? We will close the meeting and take, if you have time, Debbie, take more questions. First of all, I'd like to ask everyone to please thank Debbie for being the presenter today, for taking time to come and present this document. And that's amazing that you got through all 40 questions in that time. Thank you. Hold those cameras off until we close the meeting, please. Thank you. And well, I have to make some announcements. The next month, the meeting would be the last Saturday of the month, would be the 31st of January. I will talk about this with James and other people involved in presenting the fellowship form. I think we should make our next meeting in, the next meeting in December would be the 31st of December. And that would be New Year's Eve. Whether or not we have that meeting, look for the announcements that come from the fellowship form tickler. And normally we meet the last Saturday of every month at 12 noon Pacific time, 1 p.m. Mountain Time, 2 p.m. Central Time, and 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Topic and next meeting to be determined. We'll close the meeting with the closing prayer, which I'll share on the screen. And you are welcome to unmute yourself for the closing prayer. We thank our higher power for all that
we have received from this meeting.
As we
close,
may we take with us the
wisdom, love,
acceptance, and
hope
of
and recovery.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Let me stop the recording.